welcome to Horror Boys. It's a podcast on the internet. I'm Austin, joined as always by
Chris.
And Isaiah.
And we are the Horror Boys. And this isn't just any podcast on the internet. That's right, this is a horror movie review podcast where every week we review a horror movie. And right now, we're in a little series that has always been called Bois Choice. Never anything else.
From the very beginning.
Always been called
forever.
Bois Choice. Never Player's Choice. That doesn't sound as cute.
Also, doesn't make sense. We're not players,
Yeah.
we're boys.
We are
Yeah.
boys. And first week I did a movie. Last week Chris did a movie, which that leaves... Who does that leave? That leaves Isaiah.
My dog? No.
Yeah. Isaiah, what movie was your choice?
My choice was The Lighthouse, one of the weirdest and wildest movies I've ever seen.
That is a fair description of this movie.
It truly is.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, we are going to be talking about The Lighthouse. So let's jump right into it. That's right, The Lighthouse, which is directed and co-written by Robert Eggers, who his freshman work was The Vivitch, and that is how I've always referred to it. It has two V's. I don't care what it's supposed to say. It is The Vivitch, and we will cover that in the future. But today we're talking about his sophomore effort, which is The Lighthouse. It was also co-written by his brother Max. There's your fun little behind-the-scenes details before we jump into the movie. Actually, it's not, because we might as well just start with some other behind-the-scenes details immediately, because as we open up this movie, it's different, and not how any other movie, for the most part, is produced at this point, because it is shot in the aspect ratio of 1.19 by 1, which is basically a square, so it is...
Almost a square.
Not quite, but it is. I believe this aspect ratio was very prominently used in like the beginning of sound in movies. So like right after we transitioned from silent movies to sound movies, they were using this aspect ratio, and haven't pretty much since. Yeah, and it was
another
also,
thing worth noting. It's all filmed in black and
yeah, I
white.
was getting to that. I would trust me. I have my notes ready, Chris. And it wasn't just filmed in black and white. It was also had a special filter over it that would cut out all of the red light, because certain like old film like cameras would do that. They actually weren't able to get that type of film because it's been so long since that film existed. So they got this black and white film and they put a filter over the lens that like made it more blue, basically. Which cut out the red light, which really makes a lot of like the blemishes on people's skin really stand out and stuff. That's why a lot of like our main two characters here look like haggard throughout the whole movie, because it's due to like the fact that all the reds in their face are just showing up as like black, basically. Like it's showing
every
dark,
crease is
so,
it's just inked in.
Yeah,
Everything's inked in. Yeah.
But yeah, so there was some real stylistic choices there. Specifically, I believe the cinematographer / I don't know if it was cinematographer or if it was Robert Eggers, the director, who said it, but they chose to do the specific aspect ratio of being a square to kind of make it feel more claustrophobic, because this movie is a very claustrophobic film, as we will discuss. So yeah, there's our immediate behind the scenes details, because we have to kind of get to them first, because this movie's weird, and from the start, you might immediately go, well, this is weird, even before you get to the weird stuff, because it's a 2019 movie that's black and white in a square. Like, that already makes it weird. Also, I guess another fun fact that I didn't ever write down, but I just want to bring up here, because I don't know when else it'll be relevant to bring it up. Just get all these behind-the-scenes-y kind of fun facts that don't directly tie into scenes out at the beginning, is all of the sets in this movie had to be like created from scratch, because they didn't have because Robert Eggers is really big into making sure his period pieces feel accurate. That is like one of like the biggest like praises I've always heard about The Vivitch. I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard like one of the things he does great in that is like historians will watch that movie and go, this is the most accurate depiction of this time frame ever. Like, he is very big on making sure everything is right. So they had to have the The
Props.
Yeah, like the prop designer and whatnot. The production designer was the word I was looking for that couldn't remember. He had to like help build out this whole like the lighthouse, the little living quarters, and all that had to be built from scratch to make it have that authentic feel. Specifically, also fun extra fact about the way they built it is they actually like he was building it based off of this like 1890s book about lighthouses, like this like he was trying to keep it that accurate. He was like taking like instructions from this really old book about lighthouses. So there's some. They were really dedicated to making sure this movie was very accurate to the 1890s at ish. There's no exact date given, but that general time frame is where it's supposed to be set.
It definitely it does a good job with that.
Yeah.
That is for sure.
I guess also one last fun fact all about the production side of it is due to the type of black and white film they were specifically using, you had to for it to like pick up exposure, it had to be super bright in every scene. Like you can't tell in some of these scenes, but like apparently it was so bright in these rooms during some of these scenes that like the actors couldn't even really see each other because it had to be that bright for the camera to be able to pick it up because of the type of film they were using. So there's your last of the weird technical fun facts. Now we can jump into the plot of this movie. I put in
the movie itself.
Yeah. This movie opens up with like 3 minutes of very beautiful shots of first the ocean with like the lighthouse in the background of it. Before then we cut to like a shot of the boat cutting through the ocean, and then out of that we go to the two main characters. Silently walking up to the lighthouse. This first like 5 minutes of the movie, there's no dialogue.
No
it's just
dialogue at all.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I mentally noted what the first dialogue we got was. That is "ow" for Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, they're and then it's at this point there is a score later, but at this point the score is, and for a lot of it is mostly just a foghorn. That is the main score of this movie, which adds to like the immersion and like the kind of claustrophobia you as an audience feel watching it, kind of feeling how they do of like you're just hearing this one sound pretty much over and over again because that's all they they ever get to hear.
Maddening sound.
Yeah. Then we get a couple more silent minutes of one of our two main characters. I'd say he's, I guess, technically more the main character, who at this point we actually don't know his name because we don't learn these characters' names till way later in the movie, and this character we actually learn the wrong name first. But his name the first name we hear from him will be Ephraim Winslow, which is the name that I will be referring to him as throughout the rest of my notes until actually pretty much for the whole
Otherwise.
notes. Yeah. Until otherwise stated. But yeah, who is played by Robert Pattinson, who is most known for being in Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
He was in like the fourth Harry Potter
movie.
film. Nothing else. No other vampire films or Batman films or anything like that.
Something in the way.
But yeah,
So,
Robert Pattinson is in this movie, and he is good in this
sure
movie.
is.
I mean, all the I would say
Yeah.
all the acting,
All of them.
all of
there's
the
like-
two actors in
There's
this movie.
technically 4 of that.
That is true.
Well, there's 3 actors and an actress.
That's true, and they all do their part as well as they should.
Well as they
I mean, I would
should.
argue that I'm not going to sit here and praise original
Mermaid.
Winslow. He's in like 2 scenes without talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No dialogue. He
But
just is there.
He just looks shocked and stunned.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess that's a spoiler if you wanted to get this story throughout this whole thing, and you come to us to see these movies, which is not the way you should do it. You should go watch the movie first.
Yeah, you should have
That's
said
all. If you're
Foreman.
doing that,
Austin.
yeah.
You should have said Foreman,
Huh?
not original
Oh,
Winslow.
I'm sorry.
Jeez, you're spoiling the movie. before we get
Oopsie.
to the-
I also,
darn it.
I'll bring it up right here just because I don't care. I won't even say what it is yet, but there is certain characters that we might have mentioned has more than one name. I didn't realize he had a different name until the time when he introduces himself as Winslow, which is an hour like into the movie, and I had to go back and erase all of my notes of him as his other name. That's what his name is on IMDb. Because I was like, I have to know what these characters are called. I have to write down something.
IMDb? Oh my god!
So I had to go to IMDb and find out I was like, okay, cool. His character's name is blank. And I was like, all right, cool. That's going to be annoying. I'm going to have to refer to these characters by their last names.
Oh man, that's funny. You should have just referred to him as Lad. Like
Lad.
I mean,
No,
I could have, or Dog. He calls him Dog a lot. But then that would have got confusing later too.
Fair.
But yeah, Winslow is played by Robert Pattinson. He's walking around this lighthouse because seems to be his first time here. At this point, we don't know that it is his first time here, but at this point, we don't 100% know that. He's very, like, looking around at everything. Before he ends up heading upstairs to the bedroom where he does hit his head.
He bonks his head.
I did not write that down in my notes because I didn't think it was that relevant. But yes, that is, I believe, our first dialogue. Is him saying ow. In the room, he sees our other character. I don't believe they even talk to each other at this point. Because, why would they? We meet Thomas Wake, who I will refer to... who is played by Willem Dafoe.
God bless.
Yeah. Willem Dafoe is
an actor.
He is. But then he does the thing that I hate for, like... it ends up paying off in the end, but I hated it when it first happens, because our first thing we get with Dafoe is, as he leaves the room, he farts. And I'm like, great, fart humor. That's what I want. I will say... I think the fart humor has a good payoff, but when it happens leading up to it, it infuriated me every time.
I don't even know if it's supposed to be like humor at this point. I think it's
not really.
Like,
I mean,
I felt like it was supposed to be.
Two guys in a lighthouse, and the one guy's kind of a senile old man who just doesn't care because he hasn't had anyone else in the lighthouse for like a long time. He's been away from humanity.
He's not going to restrain his farts for some dude. Yeah,
and I think that's like part of it is he doesn't care.
I still think at any point when farts are in television or movies at this point, there is meant to be some humor in it because people love fart jokes.
Oh, I do. Yeah.
It's not for me.
I know Isaiah laughed.
Yeah, Isaiah was like,
but I didn't
fart.
I'm here for the book references and the farts.
Well,
that's why I love this movie.
Has it all for you, baby.
This movie has it all for me. Yes,
this is Isaiah's choice.
There is so much mythological like references throughout the plot.
Dude.
But yeah, let's get back to the plot. Yeah, he sees Wake, who farts and leaves the room. Then Winslow heads over to his bed and discovers this little statue of a mermaid in a hole in his mattress. He pulls it out. There's a little statue of a mermaid, seemingly maybe out of... I can't tell if... I heard some in like a video someone referred to it as made out of bone. I'm not sure if it was or if it was made out of wood, but it's a little handheld statue of a mermaid.
Oh, a little scrimshaw. I think Willem Dafoe says that at some point in the movie. I don't know how else I'd know.
It's fair.
What that is, but yeah.
Then we head to a shot of Winslow working in... I guess it's... I'm still not sure what he's supposed to be doing here. I think he's adding coal into the steam engine that powers the foghorn. I think. I know nothing about how lighthouses work, and they never tell you what he's doing in this scene. But I think after figuring things out, I think he's working on it. It's like some sort of steam engine powered by coal that also has clockwork connected to it, and I think it powers the foghorn. It might also, maybe the steam/clockwork spins the light. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it spins the lamp around.
Okay. But yeah, it's some sort of steam-powered engine with coal.
Yeah.
He is shoveling coal into this. Yeah. And then we head to our first of many dinner scenes. This one starts off a little awkward because, they don't seem to be getting along quite yet. Or ever. But
they are two strangers.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah. When in this scene, the first inciting incident of awkwardness, I would say, is when Wake wants to toast Winslow for their 4 weeks here. But Winslow, he is a stickler for the rules, and he read the book, and he knows they're not allowed to drink on the job. So he will not drink alcohol with him.
But it's bad luck to not complete a toast.
So he goes and pours out his alcohol and fills it with some water. And the water is gross because we find out later why. But at this point, we just know that I guess it's a cistern, and cisterns are gross. Let's be real. That's really why it's gross. But yeah, at this point, the cistern needs some work on it. So the water is like undrinkable. So he spits it out. But he does do the toast. There's also kind of that first kind of scene where we kind of get. I didn't write down every dialogue piece, which is most of this movie, kind of at times. There's a lot of dialogue heavy scenes where I will, just due to the nature of how we do our podcast, I will be skipping over a lot of them. I'll try to give you the big pieces, but like this scene was kind of the first time where we kind of see the power dynamic in this thing. We see Wake really trying to be like, you need to listen to me. That's also what the book says. You listen to your superiors, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. And then Wake then runs down Winslow's responsibilities, which, to Winslow's surprise, does not include manning the lighthouse, which the book says they're supposed to alternate, but Wake insists that he
manning
will be
the light specifically. Manning the light
That's what
specifically.
I said. Manning the light. But yeah. And Wake is very insistent that is his job, and it'll be his job.
The lamp is his.
You will deal with it. That's the end. End of discussion. Except for it isn't. The discussion comes up a lot, but that's Wake's mindset movie. Here is that's the end of discussion.
Yeah.
It is one of the focal points of the movie.
But he fails to kind of tamp down the controversy in this scene. He keeps going.
Then that scene ends, and we head to a pretty quick scene, though, of Winslow working on the engine. I guess the coal thing, I don't know what to refer to it as, because they don't ever tell you.
But foghorn does blare.
Yeah, but the foghorn
louder in this scene.
But I don't know if that's because he was working on the foghorn, or if just because the foghorn is nearby because they're on a very small island. But the foghorn does anger him, and he gets angry because it is loud and it's an annoying foghorn. That's pretty self-explanatory why he got angry. I think we'd all get angry if we had to deal with a foghorn as much as he does.
True.
Then we get this really pretty shot that rises up the tower of the lighthouse. Once at the top, we find Wake mesmerized by the light, shirtless, offering it a drink.
Yeah. He slowly strips down, and then it's like a very sudden shot to him laying back on the ground, going, "I see you, my beauty."
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. He really likes this light.
He loves the lamp.
Boy, does he love lamp.
He loves lamp.
Brick?
Oh, he's like Brick.
I love lamp.
You're just saying things in the room. And then, Wake goes, it's the only thing in the room. And everyone's like, you're right. Fair enough.
All right. Fair enough.
That's it.
Valid point.
Then we cut to a couple scenes, I believe, of following Winslow as he works. We start with seeing him on the beach work. I think this is the first time we see him pushing the wheelbarrow carrying the coal from wherever the coal is to where he has to put it in that unknown thing.
Ye old engine.
Yeah, ye old steam engine thing that powers something. That powers clockwork that does something.
That's not important. It's one of his duties, and that's all we know.
Yeah.
That's all that matters.
And at this point, he sees something. He walks onto the beach. Wait, no. Am I the wrong part? I think I did. I think I accidentally skipped a bit or something. I don't think he was working at this point. We're just following. I wrote we follow him while he works. That's a later scene. We're following him while he's just walking outside, and he goes on the beach. That's the scene we're at. Ignore that whole discussion about the wheelbarrow. That's later. This is where he walks on the beach, and he looks out into the water, and he sees just something that catches his eye. And eventually, as it gets closer, we realize that they're logs which are
And then
surrounding.
the logs separate.
Yeah, and we see a dead body floating in the water. And
Oh.
all during the scene, as he's like getting closer to it, he's like getting lower and lower in the water because he's basically just walking in, and he sinks under the water, and he sees a mermaid who's shrieking before he's then woken up by some water dripping on him from the shingles that need tending. Wake tells him that he needs to tend to the shingles, and he also needs to
After the cistern.
deal with the cistern, as well as lastly, I believe he has to add oil to the lamp. That is his last of his duties for that day that he's being told to do. Then we watch as Winslow carries a very heavy bag to the cistern.
Using his forehead.
Yeah, it's this weird. Yeah, some weird I don't know.
Forehead strap deal.
Yeah, and I think
bags be heavy.
From once again, it doesn't tell you in the movie. I think the bag is full of lye.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah, he pours into the cistern to make it more drinkable. He dumps it in and he
swirls it around a little bit.
And the water's already it was stinking before, and you kind of watch the water swirl for a little bit before we cut away. And then Winslow goes on the roof to fix the shingles, and then he sees a hole and he looks through it, and we watch Wake kind of gyrating in his bed.
Pulsing a little bit.
Just humping his bed.
Yeah. Maybe he is doing some self-harmonica, maybe. It would not be the last time we would see that in this movie, if it is the case.
Certainly not the last. Certainly not.
Yeah.
I hate
really,
you.
why would
I hate you, Isaiah. That I have to say that. This is your choice. You chose this movie, so
I didn't make
fault.
the movie.
But it's your fault that I have to say the term.
I don't make the rules.
Self-harmonica playing. Repeatedly in this script.
I guess I kind of am to blame. If you think about it.
Oh, there's a script for this?
I mean, I have notes, so not really. But we then follow Winslow as he gets more coal for the clockwork engine thing. This is that first time where we see him pushing the wheelbarrow. On his way back, he gets in an altercation with a one-eyed seagull who's standing in the doorway in front of him and won't move.
Yep. Very stubborn one-eyed seagull.
Yeah, so he won't get out of his way, and he eventually kind of shoos him away, though, and Wake watches him from the lighthouse tower.
Up the lighthouse.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, technically the lighthouse is the whole building. It's the tower of the...
Yeah.
I think I'll be honest, I refer to that part of the building as the tower going forward, because I believe it is officially the lighthouse tower. The whole thing is confusing, and I'm not a wiki, so I don't have the answers to all these questions.
Oh, you're not a wiki?
Nope. I'm more of a logger.
A wiki you are?
I'm a log man up in Kennedy.
I just don't understand how anyone could get tired of trees, you know?
Well, I mean, they're probably getting tired of Kennedy. Those people are too nice.
Like, let me tell you what.
I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Anyways,
but yeah, after he gets into the next thing we see is Winslow struggling to get a heavy oil drum up the spiral staircase of the tower.
Yeah.
At the top of the tower, Wake stops Winslow from going up to see the light, and he gives him this small oil can for next time. It's like, hey, you shouldn't have done that. You're stupid. Yeah.
What are you, Dillard?
Yeah.
You could have fooled me.
Yeah.
And now Wake has to take the oil drum back downstairs.
Oof.
And yeah, he, as we mentioned, Wake reprimands him for being slow, calls him a dullard. There's a kind of funny line about him being like, oh, I could have fooled me. And, it's funny enough that it made Winslow smile. He also thought...
Which is something you like...
I found myself...
Yeah. I mean, those moments seem to be so sparse, actually. Moments of them, not just being at each other's throats were so rare in the movie. I found myself, finally relishing them. Where it's like, oh, finally, they're just, having a regular, pleasant conversation or something.
Yeah, there's a lot of tension between these characters.
So much tension. Yes. Is this the scene one of the scenes where he looks up through the grate and sees something funky on the other side?
I don't
know. Or
know.
does he just go back down?
That's later.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I think that's right after a certain other drippy scene is where he sees something up there. We'll just call it that for now. That's all we're going to call it for now.
We'll get to it.
We'll
You
get
cannot escape the discussion of the dripping.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Certainly
At
not.
dinner, Winslow still won't drink and doesn't want to talk because he's not much of a talker. So Wake tells him a story about how the last keeper had left. How he went crazy. Did he tell him that?
Inauspicious.
Yeah, he tells him
I
that.
thought he didn't say that he left. I thought he said he died.
You're
because
right, he
went
does. He
mad.
does say that here. I wrote left first, but then in the next line, right, Wake tells him he died after going mad about mermaids, sirens, and bad omens, as well as believing the light was magical and that it was like salvation of some sorts.
There was the fire of St. Elmo's in there.
Yeah,
or
with
something.
fire.
Enotioned. Yeah.
Yeah. Winslow then calls them tall tales. Wake then warns him it's bad to
The
bad
spar or
luck
the
to kill a
seabird.
seabird as he refers to them, but which Wake then refers to also as tall tales, which pisses off Wake, who then slaps the crap out of him, and then reiterates that it is bad luck to kill a seabird.
Yeah, Winslow stands up, like, shocked, but also in, like, kind of a very, like, posted up position.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. He
We
just got
get, like,
slapped.
this really cool shadow that casts up on the back of the
Yes.
back of the room, which makes him all the more imposing.
Yeah.
And Thomas's expression, the old Thomas, changes from like authoritarian
I
to
know you're talking about-
legitimately
You mean Thomas
afraid.
Wake, and we have Ephraim Winslow. That's all we have at this point.
Oh,
Yeah,
excuse me.
yeah.
Yeah. But he stops being like the order giver, and we see like real fear in his eyes in
Yeah.
the seagull warning.
And also, weirdly enough, I want to point this out. Just something that kind of added to my extra confusion was the captions. Even after we know his name, refer to him as Ephraim, but IMDb calls him the other name, which just adds to the wait, what? Who's who? What? Which, I guess maybe that adds to the movie's weirdness and confusion it wants you to have, is the different information depending on where you go to get it.
What?
What if
So
they're-
you're a closed caption user in addition to the IMDb, huh?
I mean, I have to use captions to be able to pay attention well enough to take notes and make sure I don't miss important dialogue.
All right. Yeah.
In
I
general
also
life,
used closed
no.
captions, but that's because I knew that the accents were really thick in this movie, and I wanted to make
Yeah,
sure that I
That's another
caught
thing. If you're
every word
watching-
that they said.
Any Robert Eggers movie, you probably need to put captions on.
Yeah.
The guy
Dude,
likes
yeah.
period pieces with accents. I mean, he made this. He made the Vavitch, which also has very old-timey accents. And then
Yeah.
also, I haven't seen it yet. Haven't really even heard anything about it. But he just made a movie about Norse Vikings, which I'm sure also are going to talk crazy. Not crazy.
It's
Northman.
probably
Yeah,
straight up not even English.
yeah. That's another thing. I don't know how he's going to pull that off, unless the whole movie is just
Yeah.
in captions. I genuinely don't know. I haven't seen
Subtitled.
Northman. Or is it called? I think it's called Northman. The Northman,
Yeah,
right?
it's the Northman.
Yeah. Which
I really
also
wanna see
stars
it.
Willem Dafoe. Not stars, but he's in it. He's part of the cast. I wouldn't call him the star.
Yeah, what's his name? Skarsgård.
Yeah. That's Alex Skarsgård, I believe, is the star of that one.
I think it's Alex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Bill's also in it. So, and so is, Anna Taylor-Joy. The man really likes to, bring back people he's used.
Anya Taylor-Joy is a great actress.
She
so-
is
But anyways,
amazing. Yeah.
this is the Lighthouse, and
Yeah.
we really only have two actors that have dialogue. So
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, the siren
Well,
yells.
excellent actors.
Mermaid Girl, she screams. I mean, that's
He
something.
does wail.
That she
She does
does.
shriek a lot. Where was I? He gets slapped.
Yeah.
Let me find that in the notes.
He stands up, big shadow.
Yeah, and then later that night, we head up into the bedroom, and we see a seagull tapping at Winslow's window. It walks into the middle of the window, taps it, and then walks off. Which I saw someone point out on a podcast I listened to talking about this movie. Just the comedic timing of a bird is baffling that they were able to pull that out. This is a bird.
Yeah.
But it they were able to make it do exactly what they needed to at the exact perfect time in a way that was funny. The bird.
It is kind of fun, yeah.
The bird. There's definitely some comedic. A lot of the bird moments are somewhat, at least darkly comedic, and
It's mocking.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's that's a bird. It's a seagull specifically. How did you train a seagull to be able to follow commands that well?
Dude, yeah.
But yeah,
It's like this, yeah.
it taps the window. It makes him angry. So he gets up and, what do you do when you're angry? That's right. You grab your Little Mermaid statue and you play the harmonica by yourself. You know what that means if you're a long-time listener. And if you don't, you know what this movie is.
Clues.
Hopefully, if not, you've probably seen this movie and you know what that means. Did I mention that this, little statue has no shirt on? Does that help you know maybe what he's doing in this scene?
It is a depiction of a mermaid. Yeah. In the most.
Yeah, very topless mermaid. No little shell bra here. Yeah, so he plays the harmonica by himself, looking at the mermaid statue.
A little solo.
Yeah, a little solo. Then Winslow, after post harmonica, he goes outside and sees Wake standing directly naked in front of the light from the ground. Like, he's on the ground, but he sees like the naked body of Winslow standing in front of the light. Not Winslow, Wake. Thomas. I refer to him as Wake in my notes because when I started these notes, I thought these characters had the same name and needed to definitely refer to them by their last name to keep them apart. And they still kind of do. This movie is hard to describe in notes form.
I would just say in general,
that's
but fair.
And then we head to the next day, and Wake yells at Winslow for not cleaning the floor. Winslow says that he did twice, which this infuriates Wake, so Wake yells at him about not contradicting him.
And then proceeds to go on like a tirade about how you'll do what I want when I tell you to, and regardless of what that is. Like, to the extent of, if I tell you to tear down the thing and then rebuild it, then you'll do it and smile about it because you like it, and you like it because I told you to like it.
Dude, it is a dramatic speech. It says, like, if I were to you, like, pull out every nail and clean it shiny as a whale's pecker.
Yeah, with your mouth. Yeah.
Replace it,
You will get all the rust off. Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then we head to a scene of Winslow scrubbing oil drums while Wake takes notes of him doing it. Then outside, the rain...
It's kind of
in the rain, we watch as Winslow struggles to bring coal up in the wheelbarrow, like it falls over, and like because the rain and the wind are so bad, spilling all the coal out. Then we get a dinner scene where there's no talking, like it's just it's just them angry at each other, basically just eating, and we cut away to the next. We have a scene where Winslow is painting the tower while suspended by a rope, controlled by Wake. It's a kind of funny scene as he like kind of drops him a little bit before eventually the rope breaks for real and he falls down. Then Winslow
is knocked unconscious.
Yeah, he's knocked unconscious. And he wakes up a little bit later, or comes to, I guess, more accurately. And he wakes up with the seagull.
One-eyed seagull.
Yes, on his pants, ripping them. And so he swats the seagull away. Then later, the audience and Winslow, it's kind of a scene where it starts off as just like we're seeing the scene, but then we realize later at the end of the scene that Winslow is watching through a doorway, so he also knows what's happening here. We see as Wake is writing in the logbook and then locking it up. It's almost like that logbook might be important later.
Yes. Quite important.
Yeah. I mean, kind of. I mean, I don't know if, it is important. I don't know if I should say quite. It is.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. It's not like central.
Yeah. At that point, is like everything is
a revelatory moment.
Yeah, I would say at that point, everything is already kind of past the point of no return, and that just continues to add to it.
Well, it's like, I mean, we get to the point in the movie where it's just this like frantic scrabble for reality.
Yeah.
And the logbook is this one solid static part in the middle of that.
I don't know if it is though.
Well, it's meant to be. I mean,
I'm not trying to say like that's kind of the joy of this movie. It's up to interpretation. I would argue that Winslow is always a unreliable narrator, so I don't know if him reading it is accurate either. Because also, or maybe it is accurate and he was always, spoiler, always bad at his job and Wake was right. I mean, we don't know. That's the whole beauty of this movie. We don't know what's going on.
Wake's not a reliable.
Yeah.
Necessarily.
Neither of them are. Things we don't know if either of them are.
Yeah.
But that's the crazy thing is we think that Winslow might be a little bit more reliable because he's the one we've seen from, but that's us choosing to not take Wake as a reliable. But what if it is Winslow who isn't?
Yeah.
And you're not supposed. I don't think we're supposed to know. I think that's part. Like that was. I feel like the vision is you going. Who is reliable here? Are either of them reliable? Probably not.
I agree. I was only saying that is like the point of a logbook.
No, it's fair.
Is to like be a dutiful record. Obviously, that's. I mean, whether or not that's the case with this logbook is.
Yeah, because it does belong
to Winslow,
Wake.
Or not to Wake, who might be reliable, might not be.
Might not.
Who knows? I mean, I think I do agree with you, Chris, saying shaking your head no, but most of this movie is from Winslow's point of view. So is he always crazy and Wake wasn't bad at what he was doing? We don't know. And that's kind of the point, I think. Or not, who knows? Maybe there is supposed to be a direct right answer to what happens. I'm not sure what it is, though.
I don't think there's a direct right answer. I think this movie is kind of just chaos and
ambivalent.
The ambivalent unfolding of two men's minds.
Yeah, which I believe
they're
is
isolated.
It's somewhat based off of a real Lighthouse story of like I don't remember what the name of the lighthouse is off the top of my head, but it like also had two guys named Tom at it. Where spoiler, sorry, and like one of them died, and it's according to the only one who lived, it was the right circumstances, but so yeah. And I'm moving right along.
Interesting. Okay.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Being, isolated like that with another man
for
a long period of time.
That would suck. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we head to another dinner scene. This movie said, "Hey, we heard what you said about Hereditary. You love the dinner scene. Let's give you nothing but dinner." No, I'm just kidding.
Dramatic dinner.
Yeah, this movie has so many dramatic dinner scenes. None of them quite as good as that one scene in that one, but there's enough of them that it might equal it.
Like accumulate to that.
It might accumulate to that one.
Oh. They're gonna add up to it.
But yeah, at dinner, we have Winslow who asks Wake to stop calling him lad and to call him by his name, which is
I have a name.
Ephraim Winslow. So he tells us now. Which I believe, by this scene I was like, okay, I definitely was like, shouldn't have read IMDb, but also, so, yeah. Also, it would be nice if, like, the captions sometimes give the characters' names in front of their lines, but sometimes didn't.
Yeah, most of the time, the only time we got names and captions was Thomas Farts.
Yeah. So I knew his name was Thomas. And
his last name is Farts, actually.
And I believe the first time we saw the name Ephraim was when he is like on the lighthouse getting dropped. And at that point, it was the point where I went, hold up. That was the point where I realized my notes were wrong. I was like, wait what?
Didn't have checked IMDb. Dang.
I needed to know their names so I could write who they were.
I understand, dude.
Notes. Yeah. That scene was 2 pages in. I had to be able to write something. Yeah. But so Wake then asks Winslow why he's taken this job. He's like, hey, you're too pretty for this. Because I guess we'll acknowledge it here because it comes up a couple other times. But there's some definite like slight homoerotic undertones. Like they're there. They're not like drastic. Like if this isn't Nightmare on Elm Street 2, but it's still there. Like I would actually argue that it technically goes further than that movie in one scene, but still throughout the movie is more of undertones. But yeah, this is kind of that first scene because there's both of them throughout. And once again, I didn't write down every dialogue scene directly, but there are multiple times that I saw someone point out in like a review or podcast that the other character will refer to them and reference parts of them that's feminine. Like at this point, he's like, "Oh, you're just too pretty to be out here." And there's like other parts where like later there's a scene where Wake talks about how pretty his eyes are and how like he reminds him of a young actress. Like, and there's a lot of scenes where they kind of refer to the other one as a woman. So,
Mm.
as well as there's one specific scene that one of them is a woman for half of it, because this movie's weird.
Yeah.
Dude.
But yeah, so he asks him, like, hey, you're too pretty for this job. Why are you here? What'd you do before this? And Winslow tells him that he was in the timber industry before, up in Canada. Yeah. I loved when they kept calling Canada Canady. I liked
Dude.
it.
Yeah.
Or Virginie. One time we talked about, like...
Virginie.
There was one time where we talked about, like, some weird old-timey expression that, specifically in an interview I saw, Robert Pattinson was like, he had no idea what it meant, and, like, when he, like, tried to Google it, he couldn't find answers on it, because that's how, like, obscure some of these, like, weird old-timey phrases that Robert Eggers found, like, in these books of, like... old books from the 1890s were like
old sailors' logs.
Yeah, basically.
Dude.
And there's this one thing where he refers to, like, I don't remember what scene it is, and I definitely didn't write it down whenever it happened. But there's a scene where one of the characters, I think obviously his character, I would assume Robert Pattinson's character of Winslow, because he was the one who was telling the story, it refers to, like, something as quick as a Virginie fence. And he's like, I tried to look it up and had no idea what this meant, because it wasn't... the internet didn't know this phrase ever existed. Like, that's how obscure of a phrase they chose for it. But it's just... The reason I'm bringing it up here is because I really like this weird old-timey speak of not finishing the names of places for some reason and adding a Y sound at the end. I like it. I think we should bring it back.
Dude. Yeah.
Who killed Kennedy?
This is now the Horror Bois. Nope, doesn't work.
Oh no.
Nope.
Well,
No.
it doesn't end with an A.
Ooh,
so
yeah. Okay, it has to end with an A.
Anyway.
You can call me Isaiah.
Isaiah.
Yeah.
Isaiah.
Isaiah.
E.
Hey.
Yeah.
Hi.
Okay. Moving right along.
Well, I was gonna say, like, it's probably important that he came from an industry so deeply terrestrial. Like,
Yeah.
he's, because Willem Dafoe's character explains his story. Obviously, not, he's got different versions of it.
Yeah.
But it's clear from his accent and, like, his whole self that he's been with the sea.
He's a seaman.
He was a sailor at some point.
That's a way to put it. Yeah.
No matter how, maybe not. Maybe we don't call him a seaman just for reasons. Having flashbacks.
Well, there's plenty of it in this movie. What are you talking about?
I mean, there's more than I want, sure, but
Pattinson technically was by the sea.
Oh, that's what you mean. Yeah. Oh, okay.
That's what were you?
There's a mermaid.
What were you thinking of?
Winslow tells him that he used to be in the timber industry before. This is also where we find out that Wake is no longer a sailor, as we kind of just mentioned. Also, he, like, taps his leg, which at this point, he talks about his stump. So I was like, did he lose a leg?
Dragging it around.
But I don't know if he lost his leg ever. Like, I definitely, his leg doesn't work properly because of something.
I think he's being figurative, like, it's as good as, it's basically a stump now. Yeah.
But
probably
at this
all
point,
those wild nights with the light.
We also had never seen him, like, below the waist, really? So I didn't know if he had a leg. I was like, did he?
Because, dude.
Yeah, there's a lot of the shots in this movie are just, like, super duper close, which again, adds to that claustrophobia.
It's like I was like I thought maybe, like, he was covering up, like, I was like, maybe he is covering up, like, a fake leg or, like, a
peg leg.
Yeah, he had a peg leg, and I was like, oh, his character has a peg leg. Like, in my notes here, I wrote that he lost his leg, because at this point, that's what I thought they meant. I see later in the movie, like, oh no, he has a leg. Okay, I was wrong. But at this point, like, that's how, like, it feels. You're like, he kind of taps his, like, upper part of his pants, and you're like, oh, maybe lower than that. You don't see his feet in this scene. So I go, oh, maybe he doesn't have a leg there. But he does.
Yeah.
He does. We do see it later more. Like, we see, like, definitely, like, a shoe, which at this point prosthetics weren't built where you'd have a fake foot there. Like, you would have just had a peg leg. So, like, this is the 1890s. So he has a leg still. It is more
real
of a
nice
metaphor.
whittling made of a leg out of wood.
Yeah.
Well, it's because so many of the scenes that involve, like, activity and work and everything, we just see Robert Pattinson doing it out there, like with the wheelbarrow or in the engine room or whatever. And a lot of them accompany him looking up to see Willem Dafoe's character sitting down or in repose somehow. Like,
yeah.
which is important. But also, like in a movie with a lot of mermaids in it, I feel like it's also important that his lower half is so frequently obscured. Maybe not.
I like that as a theory. I don't know if it's there, but I like thinking it's there.
Man married to the sea.
Yeah.
Wake, that is.
Wake also refers to his job as a marriage to the light at this scene. So you see that he is definitely taking this very seriously. Then Winslow asks him about if he was married before. Wake answers saying that he was.
And that his wife didn't like him, being out at sea for 13 Christmases.
Fair.
Yeah.
And who could blame her, really?
Yeah.
After 13 years, I would have just assumed he was dead and moved on.
Yeah.
And that is all we hear of her.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like in the whole movie. That one sentence. He's like, it was too hard on her,
Yeah.
And that's it.
Ooh. For the most part, I do think at one point when Winslow is yelling at him, he yells about how your wife left you, I think there's one other line from Winslow, which is so we don't learn any more information about her, but also, did he even ever have a wife, or is Winslow just reiterating information he hears from him? Because there's a lot of kind of that happening, which kind of I feel like kind of adds to the theory of maybe Winslow, especially, is a very unreliable narrator of. He hears a yarn from him and then that happens almost immediately. He's kind of going crazy and just kind of. But that's I don't know.
Well, what are you thinking of?
There's a lot of theories you can make.
He
about
goes
this movie.
the seagull, especially he's like, hey, don't ever hurt a seagull, and then immediately the winds change and it's like he puts that blame on himself for killing the seagull. Spoiler. But yeah, I don't know. Once again, I think that's kind of as much as I will get to at the end, I guess. So here's that point where we're not at the end, but I'm saying my thoughts in the middle of the podcast. Darn it. I don't love this movie, but one of the things I do love is how there is no answer. I really love that side of the artistic side of it being up to interpretation. Yeah. That's cool. But yeah, let's hop back into these notes. Then Wake asks why a timberman would want to be a wiki, and Winslow is uneasily answers because he's just trying to find a good job, and he kind of alludes hey, I just that didn't work out and I have tried everything and I just need the right job, so I can settle down someday and have my own wife and stuff. But the important part of the scene, not so much what he says after, is the uneasiness we have from here of Winslow answering it. He's got some secrets why he's here.
And something else that's that becomes more central in the movie is that his secrets seem shallower somehow than Thomas's secrets. Well, old Thomas. And I don't know how to put it more specifically, but they discuss it outright in the movie about how he says same old boring story, huh? And what we find beneath it is just I don't know. He's less mysterious somehow.
Well, it's because he spills his beans, I say it.
He does.
Why'd you spill your beans?
And you never spill your beans.
Don't spill your beans at me.
All right, you guys are getting way ahead. Winslow, I already said that. He uneasily answers. Then in the next scene, Winslow asks Wake why it's bad luck to kill a seagull. Wake tells him it's because the souls of dead sailors are in them. We then get a few quick scenes of Winslow and Wake going about their work. We just got kind of scenes of mostly Winslow doing his work because he's the one who does more work. But we do have in this
everything except send to the light.
That's true. Yes, we do. But we do see Wake writing in the book as well as closing the door to the light. So that's why I said both of them
important
are doing
duties.
Yeah, they're both doing their duties. It's kind of just a scene of them both kind of going about the normal life they're living now. Then we have a scene where Winslow can't sleep, so he starts walking up the staircase of the tower before he stops under Wake, who is presumably playing the harmonica by himself as well.
Presumably.
And it's pretty much confirmed, I guess, but also I guess maybe you could argue it's not because maybe the light's involved because it's weird and we don't know and we're only getting it from Winslow's point of view, But yeah, the resulting liquid drips down in front of Winslow's face. Doesn't ever hit him, but it drips in front of his face. And I'm going to move on now because I don't want to talk about that.
Wasn't there a shot of a tentacle?
I wasn't done yet. I was going to... That's after the drip. Okay. I was just saying I didn't want to talk about the dripping anymore. Yes, no, then...
I was going to say, I didn't think we needed to, talk about the dripping anymore, so I thought we were just going to...
Yeah, then Winslow sees a tentacle, and that's the end of the scene. The next morning, Winslow pours himself some water that's really gross and discolored and like thick, and he's like, oh, so he realizes there's a problem. So he heads out to the cistern and discovers that there's a seagull that I've heard people say a dead seagull, but I swear when he first walks up, the seagull like moves its mouth, so I think it might just be a trapped seagull, but there's a seagull in there.
He maimed, at the very least, seagull, polluting the water.
And messing up the water before the other seagull, our star seagull, the one-eyed seagull, shows up and flies up and starts kind of attacking Winslow, who then proceeds to
laughing at him.
Yeah. Who then proceeds to grab him and smash the crap out of him in a, vicious scene, but is also darkly comical still.
It's, funny how it flaps around.
Yeah, and it's also funny the overkill almost of how much he's bashing this seagull in.
Yeah, clearly after the first swing, the seagull would have been done. But it kind of adds to the how much working at the lighthouse and being around Thomas has been wearing on quote unquote Winslow. Yeah, we can definitely see that he is quickly starting to lose his marbles.
Yeah. And then we pan from that in a really pretty shot that kind of goes up the lighthouse to the wind thing. What's it called? The
weather vane?
Weather vane, yes. And we see that the winds have changed. And if you didn't get that, in the next scene, Wake tells us that the winds have changed. He tells Winslow that and Winslow needs to, board up the windows, which Winslow is seems irritated by it, and Wake asks why, and he's like, hey, I can't just get some help with it. And genuinely, surprisingly, I feel like at this point in the story, Wake helps him.
Yeah.
Which I would also maybe argue adds to the theory of Winslow's a really unreliable narrator who is claiming that Wake is not pulling his weight. I mean, it's not 100%, but the fact that there was not even a moment of hesitation when he actually asked for help from Wake, which adds to, I don't know, that's just me thinking about it right now. I didn't even think about it in the moment of the movie, but thinking about it now, I'm like, maybe Wake wasn't as bad as we perceive him because we get it more from Winslow's point of view. Yeah.
This isn't a direct contradiction, but something else to point out, because I feel like that's valid. Something else to point out, might be getting too deep into it, but old Tom controls a logbook. That's one of the few duties we see him doing, and that eventually becomes this maybe not accurate record of things that have been going on. So he's the guardian of the truth, the written truth, and perception and what people observe there. And the first test that we see him eagerly aid young Thomas in is no more looking outside. Obscure. This is the part where they really start to get immured in the lighthouse and things really get weird and they lose track of time. It starts with the winds, obviously, but I feel like it's important that shuttering the windows, sealing them in, and obscuring the outside world. The fact that he's helping so much with that duty first, it kind of goes along with the role that young Thomas wants us to see him as, which is this vast liar, this puppeteer of deception or whatnot. Maybe not.
No, I definitely. Once again, I'm starting to like this movie more as we discuss it, which is not normally how it works. I normally either have an opinion on the movie or the discussion makes me hate the movie that I already disliked more. This is the first time I'm going you know what? I didn't love this movie when I first watched it, but I just love, and I think it's on purpose, is these kind of contradicting points of that, how that and what I said, but they're both in a way true, which is adds to the duality of the story of who's telling the truth. I also think another fun thing to say is the whole like the mirroring of the two characters.
Mm.
Like one of them, the only job, like you mentioned, we see them doing is keeping the truth, and while the other one's whole character is that he has a story of a lie behind, like that's his like main character beat, and I don't know, just and also like how the other mirrored elements of like, oh, one's old, one's young, like there's a lot of like mirroring to the two characters, which I think is cool.
From the land and from the sea.
Yeah. There's a lot of like how they're polar opposites, but also are they? Are they both just as broken and evil? Maybe. I don't know. They both do some pretty bad things in the story. Maybe. They didn't. Or they didn't, because who knows what part of the story is real.
Yeah.
Did any of this story actually happen? That's a theory that's proposed by one of the characters, and it's kind of hinted at possibly still being true at the very end. So, we'll get to that when we get to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is a moment at the very end that kind of makes you go, huh, okay. Which we'll get to that as we get to that, because it's pretty far down the line. But yeah.
Really, really far down the line.
But yeah, he does help him set up the windows. Winslow, then they go ahead to pull in a lobster trap, which they pull in some lobsters, and at dinner, for their final night, we hear, and it's like, this is the last time, you know, they're done after this. As I say on page 3 of, like, 7 of notes. We're on it's the last day, guys.
Yeah.
We're done. They made it. Right.
Yeah.
But don't forget that the winds have changed.
Yeah, the winds have changed.
So
there's that.
Yeah, they go in, and they go to have their dinner, and Wake insists that Winslow needs to drink with him. Come on, it's the last night. You might as well. And Winslow goes, yeah, sure. And they proceed to get, like, sloppy drunk together. And they start singing before they transition to this, like, heart-to-heart scene where, like, I believe it was Wake, like, opening up to Winslow a little bit. That then, at the end, kind of takes a turn for screaming when Winslow dares to ask why he never got to tend to the light. Which, you know, don't do that. That's Wake's thing. You can't ask Winslow. You can't ask him that. That's a bad thing to ask why you're not following the rules. Don't you dare question why this man is obsessed with this light.
Yeah.
But then it, like, heads right back to, it feels like you go like, oh, crap, is it about to, like, get bad? But no, then they both just kind of start laughing some more, and they fill up their cups again. And then Winslow asks Wake what his name is. And he finds out that it's Thomas Wake. And there is like a moment where he goes, Thomas. Like he's taken aback by the fact that this man's name is Thomas. I wonder why that could be important to Ephraim Winslow.
Yeah.
He also doesn't admit to his name being like Thomas Wake at first. Doesn't he call himself Wick?
I think he says
at first.
I think that's an accent issue because the thing says Wake, like on the thing. I think he just admits to his last name and he asks, "Hey, what's your Christian name?" And he tells him his whole name, which is Thomas. Yeah.
Call me Tom.
Yeah, just call me Tom. But I will call him Wake for the rest of the notes because this is, way into it, and I had already decided early on, because I thought the characters had the same name, I had to call him Wake from the beginning to differentiate the two.
Well, to be fair, neither of them ever call each other Thomas. It is Tom and
Tommy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I will refer to them in Wake and Winslow throughout most of my notes. If you don't like that, make your own podcast and send me a link. I'd love to listen to it. The next morning, then we cut to the next morning where Winslow wakes up on the floor. When he goes to pee, he sees that the chamber pots are full. So he goes to dump them out, but the winds have changed, so those things blow right into his face. Winds have poop and pee all over him now. But as he's out there, Winslow then goes to start doing some of his work after that, but he discovers a mermaid has washed ashore, who he realizes she's a mermaid. He doesn't realize it's a mermaid at first. He just realizes he sees a girl over there. He walks over there. He kind of like, in a really pretty scene, he like brushes off her. She's a very attractive girl, and it's also part of what makes it. It was definitely on purpose to try to make her look even prettier, her scenes are the only scenes that don't have that filter over it that cut out the red light. So her imperfections aren't as visible.
Oh.
Yeah.
She does look very smooth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not because
pretty.
she's just a perfect human. It's because she doesn't have the same filter on her.
No, she's not a human, Austin. She's a mermaid.
I'm talking about the
There's
actress.
that.
The actress who is still an attractive person isn't the perfect person ever, and that's why she looks like she has no blemishes at all. It's because they didn't have the filter on her. You can actually see in the scene his hands aren't as ragged as they normally are because the filter isn't there. But yeah,
We get a good look at his hands.
Yeah. As he's kind of brushing over and sees her naked body before continuing to run his hand down her until he finds out that she's a mermaid. And she starts shrieking at him, so he starts running away.
And the makeup is pretty horrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is impressive.
Yeah.
It's effective makeup. Yeah.
And she's still pretty. I mean, she's still the only thing you got. I mean,
Yeah, just put a bag under her fins.
we find out later that at least in a dream, he doesn't mind.
Yeah. No, he does not. Boy, does he not.
Yeah, we'll get to that when we get to it.
Well, it's not so much a dream as a fantasy.
Sure, that's fair. I mean, it's a daydream, you know.
Oh, okay. I'll grant you that.
Him and Wake then wait in the rain for the relief, but it doesn't come. Also, a little fun fact about this scene is the scene as the rain is pouring down on them. It's real because they shot this in like January to May in like Nova Scotia, and all of the rain and cold that you see throughout this movie is real. Like they are actually like dealing with this. So yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, they head back inside.
Cool.
And we head to later. Winslow is kind of working on that. You know, I think he's specifically working on the clockwork, not the steam engine part at this point, because I think he's like wiping off some of the clockwork part of it. When Wake comes in to tell him that their provisions have gotten wet and ruined. And Wake tells Winslow they need to ration their food. And Winslow kind of seems like he thinks he's overreacting a little bit because it's only been a day. But Wake says it's been weeks since they've missed the tender. And it's this point where you go, like, what? No, it's only been a day.
Huh?
We've only seen it be a day. What are you talking about?
Yes.
And it's that, once again, that thing where you go, is Wake gaslighting him? Or is Winslow going crazy?
Maybe, probably.
Maybe yes, both. Maybe not neither.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely
Maybe
not
it's
neither.
been a few days.
Yeah.
No, yeah. There is absolutely deception and lunacy happening at all times.
Yeah, either there's deception, or there's lunacy, or there's both, or there's definitely one of them.
There's probably both.
Yeah. Or none of this happened at all. That's also a possibility that we'll get to.
I'm interested to hear what y'all think about that. That didn't occur to me as a possibility, so I'll be interested to hear.
Where was I? Wake says that they have to now wait out the storm to get relief. Then they head outside and they dig up some emergency rations, which are mostly booze. But we do see a couple cans of something as they pick it out, so they're not just drinking at this point. There was some food in that. But it is kind of weird that when the rules are no drinking, the emergency rations are nothing but alcohol for the most part.
Right. Dude,
Well, you know, when emergency calls, you have to be wasted for long periods of time.
I guess at that point, they're like, it's an emergency, they're allowed to drink now. If they're in the emergency rations, get drunk. It's fine. We understand.
They got to
get the nutrients.
Yeah.
Get them drunk.
From the grog.
We then hear Wake tell Winslow a different story about how his legs stopped working than before. And you're like, oh, he's a liar.
Uh-oh.
Maybe.
Yes, like, you can, like, nail down that Wake lies.
Can we, though?
And then
I would still argue that...
I will...
my only thing is, I'm not disagreeing. I do think that is what I felt like at the moment. But I will also argue that I still think that the statement could be made that Winslow has already gone crazy at this point, and therefore, is he just hearing it wrong? I mean, I'm not saying that is the answer, because in the way the movie is presented, you are right. We are convinced that he is the liar. But you might also go, but is he? Which is, once again, the beauty of this movie. It could still be, like, we've already kind of shown that, we've already established some of the scenes where it kind of feels like, you know, Winslow's gone crazy. Like the way he smashed that bird earlier. And that's kind of before we really show him descend into madness, because it's kind of coming now. We're going to start really seeing it happen. But like,
just the beginning.
We've already kind of established that the seeds already happened, though. So did any of this happen? Also, was he, like, it's that's not me saying did any of this happen at all theory. I'm saying, like, did this lie actually happen, or did he misconstrue it? Or maybe he, at the very least, is an old man who tells tall tales and forgot which one he told him. That very well could have happened as well. Who knows? Which is the beauty of this movie, is it is so up to interpretation. And normally when that happens,
that'd be the beauty of this movie.
Yeah, and normally when that happens, I'd say it's like trying too hard to do that, and I wouldn't like it. This one, I think, in that aspect, I did like. I do have some complaints about the movie, but I'm going to actually save those for the end. Probably, I think, because I think those already kind of happened, and I haven't brought them up yet, so I'll save them for the end.
Okay. Restraint.
There were all the other times that Thomas farted.
Yeah, I mean, I was expecting to rant about the farts as they happened, the times they happened. And it happens 3 times. We've only had one of them so far, I believe, because I wrote down every time it happened, and I will remember mentioning one of them. I expected to be mad at the farts, and I'm still didn't like the farts, but I thought the payoff was worth the farts.
Absolutely.
Really my favorite.
Absolutely.
We then have a very well-acted, dramatic, drunken argument scene. I don't remember any of the specific things either of them were mad about in this scene, but it's a really good scene that, once again, even if I remembered the exact points they made, it wouldn't have done it justice anyway, so just know that they're arguing here. And the scene kind of ends with an epic monologue from Wake cursing Winslow for not liking his cooking. Because, the scene kind of opens, he's like...
It, culminates with the cooking.
I guess, before we get to that part, because I remember, the setup is at the end of this... This is the
fart scene,
At the end of the argument, Winslow is like, if I could just have a steak right now, I'd play harmonica with it.
He does say that.
Yeah, and then Wake is like, what, you don't like my food? But what about the the lobster? You had to like the lobster, boy.
He's like, he chowed down on that lobster.
And Winslow is staying strong, but he did not like it. And then we get a minute 45, I believe, monologue.
It is an epic curse.
Him with Triton, take away this, give him scurvy, all these things. I didn't write any of the details down, but it's this epic curse scene that is just the setup for a punchline, because then it ends after him cursing him, Winslow going, all right, fine, have it your way, I like your cooking. And it's all right,
I like your cooking.
That scene is amazing. It is one of the funniest scenes, because you immediately go because in the scene when Rob Pattinson's doing a really good job of selling the fear of Wake, he's what, this guy's crazy kind of a thing. He's doing some real good face acting and reaction, and then it ends with a punchline of him being fine, I like your cooking, whatever.
Dude, yes. And it's the whole movie in a nutshell, because we just heard, epic is the only word appropriate for this oath that Willem Dafoe brings out. He says hark, and the lightning strikes with the thunder. Whoa! And he's calling on the gods of the sea to dissolve him into the ocean and everything. Yeah. And then we're left with, either that's serious, or this is a crazy old man, and the situation is diffused.
Yeah.
One or the other. And that's the whole movie works this way.
Yeah.
Pretty wild, because as far as Winslow is concerned, he is a man who is entangled with some sort of maybe eldritch sea god, and then he curses at him in this is epic, just ridiculous oath to be scorned. And you just the fear in his eyes, Winslow believes every word that Wake says in the moment. This oath. Yeah, and he's just oh, I do like your cooking, actually. Just put into submission. It's wild.
The next day we see Winslow try to use his knife that he had stolen when they got the rations. I didn't mention it when it happened, but he stole a kitchen knife. And he tries to use this knife to try to unlock the lock to where the light is, but it doesn't work, and it breaks the knife. So then he heads to the locked cabinet instead, where the logbook should be. He actually is able to unlock it with the knife that time, but the logbook's not there. So he realizes that it must be with Winslow, so he sneaks into the bedroom that Winslow's Wake's sleeping in, sorry. Winslow sneaks into the room Wake is sleeping with the book on him, and at first it looks like he's going to grab the book. But then, like, in the moment he sees, like, the keys instead and realizes I'll grab that instead. I guess. I can't tell if he was always going for the keys. It looked to me like he was going for the book first. Then he goes for the keys, but then before he grabs the keys, he stops, pulls out the knife, and gets it, like, right up next to, Wake's neck before the floor creaks and Wake wakes up. And there's a really pretty shot of Willem Dafoe's eye.
Dude,
which,
yes.
Once again, part of why that scene, the technical reason why that is so pretty is because he has blue eyes, which show up really well on the type of film they were using, like how it cut out red light, but it keeps blue light really well. So his blue eyes are really striking next to his pupil. But yeah, it's a
so
really
much acting in that squint.
It really is.
And then we get a line. That's a queer way to wear your shoes, boy.
Yeah.
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 Because he's like just got him like around his neck.
Laced around his neck.
And
yeah.
Winslow says it's because I was trying not to wake you up, and he's like, all right.
Didn't want to wake you is all.
Yeah. And so then he goes to fart, because of course he has to fart.
He just farts out of me.
Yeah. Oh, wake. Where did I leave off?
That post-nap fart.
Winslow calls Wake not human anymore and only tolerable when he's drunk because he's about to leave, and Wake just kind of doesn't care. Wake, I think, just kind of like, oh, whatever, go to work. Kind of a situation after he gets told that, like, hey, you're not human and you're only tolerable when you're drunk, which is not how most people, I feel like, would react when someone is that mean to them.
Yeah, it's pretty cold.
Yeah. But Wake doesn't really seem to care. So, then we have a scene where Winslow is getting very drunk while he is, and it's like cut between him getting drunk and him working. And then, I got confused by my own notes here. Then we have a scene that cuts between Winslow working, harmonica playing, and his fantasy of playing harmonica with the mermaid.
Yeah.
We see her mermaid everything. We see her mermaid below the belt, if you know what I'm trying to say, which is
very large mermaid below the belt.
Which I believe, from my understanding, is actually designed to look like a shark. That's how their genitals look.
Yes, the shark mermaids.
I mean, that's how they chose to depict the mermaid's genitals.
As you do.
Yeah.
Then he's playing harmonica with the mermaid, and we're cutting back to him vigorously self-harmonicating before, in the midst of this, like, fantasy, there's some scenes of the back of a man's head. And you're like, oh, what's going on here? And then the fantasy of him with the mermaid starts to get a little more, like, aggressive and violent, like she's hurting him before, like, pulling him underwater. Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah.
And then after that, he as well. And then Winslow then breaks down in tears and pulls out the knife, and it looks like he's going to stab himself, but he ends up stabbing the now broken mermaid statue he threw in the middle of his breakdown. Yeah, we also get, if you want to see,
because it's made of ivory.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of like...
Yeah, him stabbing it did nothing, but he did it.
Yeah.
He stabbed it.
That good old post-harmonica clarity.
Yeah. Well, I don't even actually finished, because he kind of got freaked out by the, getting drowned and seeing his dead former boss. Spoiler.
Yeah. The dead foreman.
Yeah. But yeah. We also, if you really wanted to see, Robert Pattinson's butt, there's some Robert Pattinson butt in this very... It's such a weird... This is the most well-acted scene I've ever seen of someone who's half naked. Like, he is killing it with the emotion, but my brain is also going, I also have to see his butt, though. This is weird.
I am uncomfortable.
Yeah, I am uncomfortable because he is naked, but also he is killing the emotion in this scene as he is freaking out. Like, it was such a weird scene to have to watch.
Dude, it's so it's a trip.
I believe also
a trip.
After that, and also the work we saw him doing, as we were talking about how it was cutting between him doing work, was him pulling up a lobster cage. And then after him doing the stabbing scene, we have him finally pull up the lobster trap, and there is a head inside, which is one-eyed, presumably the former
Wiki,
who worked under Wake.
Who else? Right, I mean...
Yeah, or it doesn't exist at all, because he's gone crazy at this point.
Right, yes,
or that.
Division.
Yeah. Because also, there is never a moment where Wake ever refers to his former wiki of being one-eyed. That only would come from Winslow, who believed that seagull he killed was his former wiki. Because that, it's a whole, at the very least, and it could be, maybe his wiki. He also does say that later in a scene where he's yelling at Wake that, your former one-eyed, partner, you killed him. So, and Wake doesn't correct him, but also he's being yelled at. I don't know if Wake would have corrected the one fact, he didn't have one eye. It's I don't think that was the moment to bring that up. But we're still not even, as the audience, knowing for sure that the former, second was ever even had one eye. Just that the seagull had one eye, so therefore Winslow thinks that he must have had one eye. Because I pulled up this head with one eye, I think. Or I didn't, because I'm going crazy, because I'm drunk beyond belief, and also going hysteric because I have no one to talk to. There are so many reasons why he... Yeah. But, so, did any of that happen there? Who knows? But, yeah. That maybe his former wiki had one eye. Maybe it didn't. The implication here is that he pulled up the wiki's head. At least that's what he believes.
Yeah.
Then next we see him and Wake just chugging bottles of booze. Then they dance and sing very fun, hearty dancing, little shanties.
The shanty type, sailor songs.
Completely illegible what they're saying, because their accents are so thick that even and
they're drunk.
Yeah, they're drunk. Yeah. Their accents are thick, and it's just even on the captions, it was like half of it wasn't words, and I was like, all right.
It was.
Yeah. Then they kind of transition from that really hearty singing and dancing to them slow dancing with Wake singing very melodically to him.
Like a lullaby.
Then they kind of look deeply in each other's eyes and they get so close to kissing, which then obviously leads to them into being in a fist fight because they're not gay, okay?
Yeah. They
did not just have gay thoughts towards each other. They have to fight to prove it now. Which this is the scene I was referencing where it definitely... In the other movie, characters never get close to kissing, and, Nightmare on Elm Street 2. Those undertones are technically more undertones, but also probably a little gayer. But this movie definitely does have some homoerotic undertones here as they almost kiss before deciding to get into a fist fight that in the original script is written in a way that is very suggestive, even the way it describes their fighting. It's written and they grab each other and their arms are their veins are popping out as they hold each other so tightly and it's definitely supposed to be very suggestive what's happening here.
Kissing all over each other.
It doesn't ever say that. Then Wake, after the fight, Winslow is holding Wake in his arms, he's sitting up with Wake's head in his arms, and he's starts to tell him about his real name, and he's like, hey, my real name is Thomas Howard. What?
Yeah.
And it's like kind of an accident when it comes out, right?
I don't think so. I think he was definitely
No.
like trying to. Oh, he wanted to tell him his name. I think it was.
Yeah.
It was once
Oh,
he
you're
asked
right,
why
yeah.
you took the other name is when it starts.
He's like,
starts
there's
spilling.
something I've got to tell you,
Yeah.
and then
But I mean, you could also argue that he's only doing this because he's drunk. So yes, it was an accident, but that first part didn't feel as accidental.
and then Tom is very insistent about him not spilling his
Yeah,
beans.
he's like, don't tell me anymore.
Yeah.
But also, it was after the first Wake asked him why Winslow, and then I'm gonna still refer to him as Winslow throughout the rest of the thing. His name is actually Tom Howard, I guess, but also the captions refer to him as Ephraim for the rest of the movie, so even they also refer to him as still being Winslow. So I'm gonna call him Winslow for the rest of the notes, just so you know. His name is really Tom Howard, not to be confused with Todd Howard, the CEO of Bethesda. Different person.
Slightly less evil than Todd Howard.
Yeah. Then Winslow starts to tell him, he starts to tell him that he was on a logging trip and he was, being ragged on by him. He doesn't say who he is, but he just says, by him. But he stops himself there, and they continue to drunkenly talk about, like, oh, don't spill your beans. He's also like, oh, do you trust me? Like, oh, I trust you. You trust me? No, I don't trust you. Like, it's a very drunken back and forth about if Winslow trusts Wake. We then transition into Winslow. We find out later, not directly to Wake because he had already left the room, I guess, but could hear it. Is telling him the rest of the actual story about how he could have killed Winslow, but OG Winslow, but didn't. But he didn't. He just let him. He saw him slipping and didn't do anything. And so it's the old it's like how Jigsaw never killed anyone. Winslow never killed anyone. He just let them die. But no,
moral quandary.
But yeah, he slipped into the logs, and then how after that he took the name Winslow. Which also, I saw someone point out in a podcast, I guess I'll mention who the podcast I keep referencing is. It's the Dead Meat Podcast. They're much bigger than us. They don't need me mentioning them, but I don't want to be try to be secretive on who they are. They're awesome.
Oh, yeah.
They've been in the horror community much longer than us. They're amazing. They're cool. But yeah, that's who I'm referencing when I talk about the podcast I will listen to. They mentioned here how there's a certain line about the way he says it, how I had to take his name, because it was better than it was. How else would I ever get a job if I didn't? And it's which also adds that maybe there's even more of the story he still didn't tell. Why was he worried about? What was? No one knew he killed him. So what part of the story made or didn't no one why was his name so bad that he couldn't get another job afterwards?
Yeah, he does say that he's had a whole bunch of other jobs and that none of them stuck.
Yeah, which
does
kind of imply though that
his name Thomas wasn't any good.
Yeah, Thomas Howard, he had to take the name Winslow. So it's well, what did he do that soiled the name Howard?
Right?
If it wasn't killing him.
He needed a clean name.
Yeah, it's what did you do that? Okay, so you didn't kill him, but who did you kill? Because why are you hiding your name now? So I thought that was a really good point that I didn't think of when I was watching this, but they pointed out that I was like, oh, that's a really good. Why did he feel so he needed to take the name Winslow, which adds to. Was any of the story he even told here even the full truth? Maybe he definitely did push him, Who knows? But then as the scene ends, he realizes that, he looks around and realizes the Wake isn't there. But we don't see Wake yet, but we do hear him saying, oh, why did you spill your beans, repeatedly, as it, we transition.
It's echoing.
Yeah, it's echoing, because it's presumably he's in the light now. Because, the shot is, looking up towards the light, as, up the style staircase. I lost my place because I did too much of that off my notes. I was remembering too much of what happened, so now it's hard to remember where I was.
Wow.
I remembered this very memorable movie.
Yeah.
Darn it.
Yeah, but then it makes it awkward because I don't exactly remember what happens next, so I do need to find what happens next.
Starting off point.
Before then, we transition into Winslow finding himself in. We kind of transitioned to like up on like the outside of the lighthouse. At least the shot is. And once again, definitely this shot definitely did not actually happen. This is definitely a like crazy vision kind of thing, because we see Winslow finding. I thought he finds like a body lying down that I thought were the clothes. That was like this body was like the clothes of Wake, but once again, Dead Meat pointed out that it was original Winslow's clothes that we see in like the shot of like the background of the head and floating in the water. So he's like picking up Winslow's body, but then he reveals that as he picks it up, it's actually Robert Pattinson there. So it's a whole more like mind, like what the heck is happening moment. Before then, more what the heck is happening. Wake is standing over him, butt naked with a really cool like sailor tattoo on his chest, and then his eyes are
like a
glowing
beam of light.
like a light.
Yes.
Looking down at him, which I believe, I don't remember who it's by, but it's like a reference to this really famous painting, or not know if really famous, but whatever, a painting that's.
Really?
Yeah, which is something that Robert Eggers really likes to do. There's like multiple references. Like he takes a lot of like inspiration from paintings, which is not something I would personally ever be able to do for, if I ever wanted to write or direct, because I don't know enough about paintings and art like that. But he takes a lot of like inspiration from paintings, which I think is really cool, especially because to be able to like take such a purely visual like medium and then be like, how do I be able to fit that into his story is really impressive.
How do I write this into
like, I love this visual, so I'm going to write this into a movie in a way that, I mean, it makes sense as well as this movie makes sense.
Yeah. It's a really powerful and wild visual.
Yeah.
That it sticks with you.
Arresting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then after that, we cut to Winslow running to, and then trying to escape in the lifeboat before Wake runs up and starts breaking the boat with an axe. Winslow then runs away. Wake chases after him, hobbling around because he's got a bum leg. And then once inside, like Wake smashes the axe into the table, and then Winslow accuses him of, he basically lays out I figured out what happened. Like, you killed your former person and you cursed him with this, this little statue of the mermaid, and I broke it. So now this curse is broken, and you have no power over me. And you killed your former one-eyed Wiki. And then Wake says that hey, you have definitely gone crazy because first you were chasing me out there and you broke the boat, and then you chased me with an axe, and you go, wait, what? That's not what happened.
That's the opposite.
But Winslow also, it breaks him because he goes, "Is that what happened?" Like, you can tell, in his facial acting,
he's like, maybe that's
oh crap, am I insane? And then Wake tells him to hey, how long have we even been here? Have we been 5 weeks, 2 days on this rock, or are you even here at all, or are you on your deathbed in Canada imagining all of this? Which, I say that line, I think, is really important to one of the possible interpretations that we will get to at the very end of this movie. Remember that line.
He also alludes to the fact that, is he even real? Is he just a figment of his imagination? And it's just oh.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe.
Yeah. Remember that possibility of, this could be a
nightmare,
a deathbed illusion and going through this scenario that isn't real. Remember that as a possibility. Wake then gets Winslow to give the knife he stole. He's like, you don't want to have this. This is, extra bad. And he breaks it and throws it into the fire.
The minute he does that, he returns back to, the old domineering disciplinarian. Yeah. He just gets that little foothold, and he's been coaxing him out of the tree like a frightened cat. You're going crazy. That gentleman just dries up as soon as the knife goes out of the picture.
But yeah. And then Winslow goes, I could use a smoke. Which, it's weird that he says, I could use a smoke, and then Wake goes, we're out of alcohol, so how are you going to do that? And it's he asked for a smoke, not a drink, which I felt was a really weird, it just didn't feel it wasn't that, it's just it was wait, what? He didn't say he wanted a drink. All right. And then they realize that, oh crap, we don't have any alcohol. So then they mix honey into turpentine and drink that for the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
Which
not,
is
I
like
will say is not good for you guys.
super dangerous. Like I remember, once again, keep referencing them. The Dead Meat Podcast, they mentioned how like when you like work with turpentine, you're like supposed to do it in a well ventilated area because the fumes themselves could be dangerous if you're near them long enough. And they're drinking it with honey.
Yet another stunt that we need to test out.
No,
Chris.
No, I'm good.
Isaiah will test that one out.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Fair.
I like honey.
I like honey.
Honey is
He's
nice.
promising.
I don't think it
Some
is.
good old bee vomit with turpentine.
Yeah. We season it lightly with turpentine.
We then see shots of how we see them like howling and panting at the ground because like apparently they really like the way it tastes, or they're to just kind of show their madness.
I think it's it's just like really, really strong.
Yeah. I would select.
No,
I would select that
they love it.
It's more than that because they're like acting like animals at this point, like in that scene where they're like pounding the ground. Like it's to show once again the descent of madness or how crazy they become.
I think it might be in part due that they're drinking turpentine.
Sure. No, I'm not.
I'm gonna go down on a limb here.
No, I agree, but
There's a phrase that Willem Dafoe says as he drinks that it's like he's monkey something.
I don't remember.
That I was just like, is that a
What did he say?
Is that a phrase that was used at some point in time?
I don't remember what he says.
We then see
One of the many quirky phrases that they say in this movie.
We then see shots of how bad the storm has gotten, intercutting with inside. We see Winslow and Wake cackling under the table at the window, and then under that window, the window shatters due to a wave crashing into it.
Monkey pump.
All right.
Monkey pump.
Okay.
I don't like the sound of that.
Okay.
And that's exactly what I was like. Why? Why that?
In the morning, we see the house in shambles and flooded. Winslow stumbles over, trying to pee in a bucket that is floating, that is moving away from him, before then discovering that the logbook is there. And he reads it and gets really angry. And then...
well, first he vomits into the water and then collapses into it.
I don't think that was...
then he finds the
logbook. I don't think that was important when we're an hour, 45 minutes in to cut me off to bring up that he puked as well in the scene.
Very important. Very important. There are lots of bodily functions that happened in this movie.
I mean, yes, but I don't know if it was that important. He's really drunk.
It was.
All right.
You're outvoted. But the whole logbook reading is, I mean, like, because young Tom gets indignant about things that are just obviously true.
Well, we're not that yet.
Like,
Yet.
He says, like, prone to habitual self-abuse in the shed.
Well, first, you're jumping a little bit ahead. He reads it, then he punches out the clock.
That's
right.
Then
he walks over to him to Wake sees that his hand is cut. And he starts to tell this story before Winslow cuts him off and starts yelling at him about everything and how he hates all these yarns and like, stop telling me all these stories. And like, he also hates, Wake's GD farting. The GD farting. Like, it's like...
he says a whole lot of things about
I'm not...
He's the way he smells.
Yeah, he then starts about all the way he smells, and it gets really vulgar and very, I'll be honest, a little comical. I'm not going to repeat any of... First he says he smells like piss. Then he keeps going, and you can watch the movie to know exactly what he says.
He gets really inventive with the way
there are some things that
are
there are some things that are curdled that cannot curdle, and it is vulgar and gross, and we will move on. But it is also hilarious. Wake then like fires and basically like he relieves Winslow, and Winslow then's like, oh really? Yeah, no surprise. I already know. And then he reads off all the bad things he's done, which does include like, self-harmonica playing in the thing, which they refer to as self-mutilation. But like, I see what you're saying, like, oh, that's genuinely true. But like, it happened one time where they're referencing that, like, from what we saw. Like, the other time was like at night when no one could see it in his room, not in the shed. So it's like, I see what he's saying of being like, really? Like, we're stuck out here and you're going to get mad at me for doing something that, like, I don't want to like keep saying.
Which also,
like,
can we just acknowledge the fact that he wrote it in his logbook, which means that he saw him do that?
it's also true.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of the things he mentioned, but most of the other ones were like, just like being bad at his work.
Drinking on the job.
Yeah, drinking on his job, which he encouraged him to do.
He was encouraged. Yes.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Yes, there was a lot
which
of
at the very least makes Wake a manipulator.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or does it? Because did any of that happen the way he thought it did?
Or did any of it happen, period?
Yeah. Or did Winslow, say that all this happened, but he just chose to start drinking and he's using that as his excuse when he's, visually telling us this story because he's an unreliable narrator? Or is he? Is Wake it's, once again, the beauty of this movie is, I agree with you guys. I personally do lean more with the agreeing with you of Wake is more the unreliable one. But the movie does a really good job of not letting you know that for sure.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. An air of mystery constantly hanging.
So yeah, he gets really mad at all that, and like it ends with being like, and severance without pay, which is, can you imagine like going through the backbreaking work that he did all of? Let's be like, once again, at least from what we saw, he did all this work, and then at the end of it, he's going to spend a month plus doing that insanity, and then not even get paid for it. Like that's what Wake decided needs to happen. Due to all the bad things he did, even though most of them you go, did he? Is he really the one at fault there? Kind of a situation. So it's like, okay, maybe this Wake guy is bad. But also, once again, the story's from Winslow's point of view. So is he? We don't know. Because according to, Wake, Winslow chased him with an axe. And, sounds like a crazy person. So, but yeah. Then after saying... Then after all that, Wake is like, all right, please just let me see the light. Because he's also now become obsessed with this light, and that's what he's worried about at this point. He's, like begging him to like, oh, come on, please let me just go see the light. And, Wake obviously tells Winslow no, because that's been the whole story of this movie is no, you can't see the light.
The light is
it's Wake's, not Winslow. You can't have it. And then this is that scene where he just berates him and calls him a bunch of names, like that I referenced earlier with like the time about, oh, you got these like these beautiful woman's eyes, and you're like a young starlet who like just wants everything handed to her, and it's like he's referring to him very femininely here, which just feels out of nowhere and weird. But I don't know. I don't know what
the interpretation mentions a silver spoon.
Yeah, he mentioned, oh, you want the silver spoon in your mouth. It's also like, I don't see that at all with the character we've seen from him, which really, you go like, what?
Yeah.
What are you talking about, man? But, and, it apparently really makes, Winslow mad too, because he goes to choke him, and they get in a little choke fight for a little bit. And they kind of tussle around before Winslow kicks Wake in the nuts to get the upper hand. And then he gets him in this, like, rear naked choke before Wake knocks him off into, like, the table. Then Winslow looks over and sees the original Winslow and gets really mad and starts jumping on him and punching the crap out of him. A few times before Wake says, "You're killing me," which knocks Winslow back to reality, and he gets off of Wake. Wait, no, I jumped too far. Sorry.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, because there are 3 transformations,
and then he turns into the mermaid, and like it's all like handsy on his face. Which, once again, yes, he's picturing it being the mermaid here, but is Wake really like touching up on his face? Because that's weird. Like he puts like his finger in his mouth. Like, is this hat like is that part even happening at all? Is Wake getting really like, I don't know. But then he turns into like, he turns back into Wake, but yeah, as Poseidon, like all barnacled up with like a crown and also
tentacles.
Yeah, has tentacles and like starts choking him. But Winslow just gets so angry and just keeps punching him, and eventually hears Wake say, "You're killing me," which knocks Winslow back into reality, and he gets off of Wake. Winslow then gets up and looks down at him and realizes that the power dynamic is now shifted, and he tells him to bark, and repeatedly until he gets really barking and stands over him and is like, "All right, roll over." And at first in that scene I'm like, "Oh, okay, what's about to happen here? This is all right." And then we cut to outside as he has him on a leash on all fours,
walking him.
Yeah, like a dog. Which I would say in some ways is kind of, this is, the discussion we kind of had last week of, what I would argue is not good foreshadowing compared to this one, which is this whole movie, Wake called Winslow a dog. So to then turn that back around on him is really powerful. And not something you would notice the first time you watch it, maybe, but it's something that's there, and you're like, okay, oh.
Yeah.
So yeah, he takes him out like a dog to the hole from earlier where they dug up the provisions, and he kind of just says, "Hey, get in there." And Winslow kind of rolls himself in there, which it's fair. I wouldn't. You've now been stripped down to your underwear, because we didn't mention that either. He's in his underwear now as a dog, being treated like a dog on a leash. I wouldn't argue with this man who just tried to beat the crap out of me. So he rolls into the hole, and Winslow starts to bury Wake as Wake tries to give this another epic monologue. Not quite as epic as the first one, but still pretty crazy. But he's kind of struggling as dirt kind of hits his face and gets in his mouth, which, fun fact, is real dirt. The initial plan was to use crumbled cake pieces once they got to his face and stuff to make it safe, but it wasn't working the day of, so Willem Dafoe's nah, just
eating up all the cake.
Willem Dafoe's nah, just throw dirt on me, and they did, and he struggled through this scene with actual dirt getting in his mouth and still staying in character and giving this speech. Which
okay, so it was important that they throw the dirt on his mouth.
Maybe.
That was planned.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it was supposed to hit him.
Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yeah, it was supposed to hit him in the face. It was supposed to be burying him a little bit. I don't know. I guess that's fair. Because he said that in this interview that they were supposed to use cake pieces once they got up closer to his head and stuff to make it safer. Or maybe they just knew some would hit him in the mouth and they wanted to make it not dirt. I don't know exactly what the exact intention was initially. Maybe they did choose to throw less of it towards his. Maybe his whole head was supposed to be buried initially and they backed up a little bit. I haven't read the original script. I don't know how much he was supposed to be buried.
Right.
But I just thought it was insanely crazy that 50-something Willem Dafoe's no, just throw dirt in my face. I don't care. 50-year-old, amazing actor who's known for being amazing already is no, just throw dirt in my face. I'm down. Let's do it. Let's get the scene. And you're okay, Willem Dafoe, sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure Robert Eggers is you want us to do what? Just put the dirt in my face. The cake's obviously not working. And you're you sure about this, Willem? And he's yes. And then the man was, robbed of his Oscar because he wasn't even nominated, and that's a shame.
That is a crime.
Yeah, which is it's a crime we will discuss many a times because it happens with horror all the time. Why was Toni Collette not nominated for an Oscar for Hereditary that we discussed last week? There are a lot of very talented horror actors and actresses over the years. There's also some bad ones, don't get me wrong, but there are some who get robbed of
a lot of bad ones.
Yeah, but horror doesn't even half the time get even recognition in the special effects awards and stuff because for whatever reason the Academy doesn't respect horror.
It's high art, which is becoming less and less true in the modern era.
Yeah. But also, art's subjective and,
Sure.
Yeah. But then after Wake passes out, Winslow retrieves the key from him and then proceeds to go up the stairs, crawling up the stairs. Oh, so sorry.
I will say there's an important part of the monologue as he's being buried, and he said, "You will be cursed for this." After he dies. But yeah, so just keep that in mind.
Oh.
And he references Prometheus.
Yeah.
Though I think it's not as direct, saying like you're Prometheus. He uses an adjective for like.
I mean,
some other
but
thing.
he is Prometheus. Like there is the way this movie ends. He's Prometheus. He's getting his kidneys eaten out.
Yeah.
But but yeah, he takes the keys from him and then proceeds. It looks like he's looking up the stairs to like the lighthouse, but he doesn't go up to the lighthouse yet. He actually goes into the living quarters, and grabs a cigarette from this little pack he has hidden. But then Wake runs in and just hits him with an axe in the shoulder, and Winslow knocks him down with like the little pot of kerosene, not kerosene, turpentine, probably. Yeah.
Wake, running in exclaiming, "The light is mine!"
Yeah. And he tries to hit him, and he does. He hits him in the shoulder, so he's like messed up now. But Winslow knocks him down with the little pot, and then...
And being the experienced, logger that he is, takes the axe with one hand and just...
swings it down once. All he needed was one shot into the man's head, and it explodes, and you
blood
see some
and viscera.
Yeah. Oh.
And then, is caked on his face.
Yeah. Then Winslow crawls up the stairs of the lighthouse tower and enters I believe it's called the lantern when you're up there. At least that's what he refers to it once in the movie, but also they call it the light and the lamp. Like, it has a lot of different names. I don't know what that room exactly is called, but yeah. And then the door to the light itself, like the door to the lens, like opens for him magically, and Winslow,
it like stops in front of him and then opens. Yeah.
And then Winslow reaches out into it, and he starts making like these faces of ecstasy and laughing, which then transition into him screaming.
Screams.
Yeah,
these
but like
distorted screams.
Yeah, like it's so distorted. Like he's like I've heard it references. I think it's a really good example. Is like both like the light in the scene and the audio are both like washed out and like done too much. Like it's crazy. It's
Oh man.
It's also another scene
I know
where
exactly what it sounds like, and it's like I don't know if you guys ever played Slenderman or like watched videos of Slenderman, but like the sound it makes when you turn and you see like the distorted image of Slenderman is like, it's wild.
That didn't pick up at all, but okay.
Yeah, that's fair. Nor should it have. It would not have done the sound justice.
All right. And then as he's screaming, he falls down the staircase. Falls down first from the like little place he is and hits
light
like
room
right under it. Yeah, like right under it, like at the top of the staircase. And then what's the thing I didn't even notice the first time, but he breaks his legs, which kind of adds to, once again, not me, a theory that Dead Meat had that may have been the actual true story on how Wake broke his leg. Is a similar situation where he fell out. It's a fun possibility.
Interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, after he breaks his legs and falls there, he then rolls down the staircase, and then we cut out from there, and we transition into his naked, bloody body being eaten by seagulls.
Naked, bloody, poopy body.
I didn't know.
It is also covered in bird poop.
Oh, yes. And also, fun little fact about this scene that adds to the theory we acknowledged earlier, behind him is logs. He is surrounded by logs as he's being eaten by this seagull, which, yes, could just be... This scene is probably not real in any way, but also kind of adds to the possible theory of none of this happened, and it's all happening in his head as he died in the logging, like maybe the original Winslow fought back or something. It's never stated at all. Who knows? But like, he's maybe dead here. Like from there.
I think this is a visual shot of like a real scene.
Yeah, possibly. Then there's like logs.
Okay.
I just think there's logs behind him. I don't know if I personally agree with that theory, but I like that it's because there are very on purpose logs, like piles of logs behind him as he's getting the seagulls eating him out in the very Prometheus-esque moment for him. So it kind of adds to the, did any of this happen at all? Possible explanation for this whole movie. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. Here's my final thoughts on the movie, because we're done. That's the last shot. We go to the credits after that. My final thoughts are I enjoyed this movie. Genuinely discussing this movie, I think, did actually raise my opinion on it slightly. because I now really respect the, like, so many different ways it can be interpreted element of it. But in general, my general thought is it wasn't quite for me. I thought it was... I can't deny the acting. I can't deny the cinematography. But it was just a little too artsy for me. I'm not a big art house kind of film person, and this is a film that really felt like it was trying to be really artsy. And that's fine. I have nothing against that. Like, hey, if that's the movie they're trying to make, they made it. They definitely made a movie that they were trying to make. But, yeah, it just wasn't 100% for me. It was a little too slow at the beginning and a little just too weird for my liking. Which, that's my thoughts. Is I liked it. Didn't love it. Thought it was a little too artsy for me.
I would say I really like this movie. I don't love it, but I do really like it a lot. And I would respect a lot of the decisions that it makes, and just how kind of unabashedly strange it is. And like Isaiah used this word before, and I really think it's an apropos word for this movie. Is it's an ambivalent look at maybe two men. Maybe, that's up for debate. Maybe two men losing their minds. Maybe both are guilty of heinous crimes, and that guilt is further haunting them and driving them insane. Or maybe it's just one man who's done some really heinous crimes and he's alone in the lighthouse, and who knows? There's so many different interpretations that you could draw from this movie. But either way, it is a really well-made movie with two phenomenal actors and a really cool mermaid.
And a really great OG Winslow sitting there for 2 scenes.
Yeah. He knocks it out of the park, really.
He's a really good floating dead body.
Together.
He's a really good standing back of the head, and he's a really good sitting looking up at him. That's actually 3 scenes. Pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But I do really enjoy when movies make me think, because I have kind of a little bit of writer's brain, and so anytime that I can see a movie's ending coming from a mile away, all right, yeah, whatever. I've seen this a million times, but The Lighthouse really kind of keeps you on your toes the entirety of the movie, and I like that a lot. Would I recommend this movie to most people? Absolutely not. No. I don't think I would mention the fact that I've seen this movie to most people. But it is definitely a good movie, and if you don't mind some really strange, very graphic things that happen, then I'd say go for it. Isaiah?
I really, this is one of my favorite movies. Become one of my favorites.
It was your boy's choice.
It was.
That'd be
it
weird
was
if
indeed.
you didn't like this movie. I actually hate this one.
Movie.
I give it like a 4.
Solid 3 out of 10.
No, I love it. I'll admit a lot of it's because it deeply, not just superficially, but deeply references a lot of things in books and poems that are my other favorites. Like Rime of the Ancient Mariner with the seagull, and Moby Dick with the character of Ahab, and The Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf with the figure of a lighthouse, and what it can symbolize, if anything, things like that. And I could rant on and on about all of that stuff because it's so cool to me. The mocking seagull, it's just, I don't know. I don't even know where to start on all that. It's just, I love it. Love all that. And personally, we've established it's hard to kind of figure out the one right way to look at this movie. I think the closing shot suggests that between the options of Willem Dafoe's character actually being this real, mysterious, almost magical figure, or all of this being in the younger Tom's head, the fact that he, in the end, gets this epic punishment seems to land more on the side of like, oh, okay, actually there is some like supernatural stuff going on here. I think I forgot to mention earlier the stuff they reference is Proteus from Odysseus, another myth, the god of the sea, where if you wrestle him, the warning to Odysseus is that like you got to hold on to him, and he'll go through 3 transformations. But if you keep a hold of him, then he'll submit and tell you what you want to know. And that's like the progressive revelation we see with Willem Dafoe's character at the end, where eventually he reveals himself to be Proteus, this god of the sea, and agrees to, then he just becomes this subservient figure. So I think in the end, like, the movie does cinch that being reality. But then, even if that's the case, it leaves up another question: like, well, is this all like the afterlife? Is this an afterlife journey for young Tom going to the lighthouse? I don't know, and I don't know what the lighthouse symbolizes. Truth seems like a good candidate, but it's hard to say. That's kind of like a white whale character.
It's a fallacy. It's a phallic symbol because this movie's homoerotic. There's actually there is an element of that.
That's pretty much it, actually.
Like,
yeah,
there is actually 100% element of that because there was like an original script that he had that was actually would have been NC-17, where one of the shots would have been like cutting between the lighthouse and an erect member, like to show the direct like this is what the symbolism is. So
it's a dong. Yeah,
but apparently like higher ups went like you can't make a black and white NC-17 film. We won't be able to sell this to anyone.
That's fair. Yeah. Wouldn't exactly do well in theaters.
Yeah.
That's all I got. But I love this movie. One of my favorites. The writing, the dialogue, the way it looks, and the acting are just all top notch. So.
Yeah, I want to double down on. I agree wholeheartedly with the acting and like the cinematography. I'll make sure that is clear. I am not taking anything away from really anyone involved in this movie. It just wasn't for me. Like, and that's fine. Like, I personally didn't love this movie, but it is masterfully shot and acted, and story-wise, it's somewhat hard to follow, but that's the point. Like, it's still masterfully written, too. Like, it is amazing. It's just not for me. And that's
definitely fair.
Yeah, some people, that's how it's always going to be. Some movies are for some people, some movies aren't.
Oh, just like most slashers aren't for me. There are some slashers that I really, really like.
Well, we're going to have to watch a lot more slashers because there's a lot more of them than there are other horror movies. I'm sorry.
Sure are.
So we will be watching a lot of
I'm really looking forward to Halloween.
Well, we'll watch that at some point. Maybe even this year.
3 months, maybe.
But it's not
Who knows?
what we're watching.
You could say what day we
I mean, our podcast comes out on Mondays, and like this year, there's this Monday on October 31st, which is what day is that? It's Halloween, maybe? I don't know.
Thanksgiving.
Be great. Oh, maybe we'll watch Thanksgiving that day.
Thanksgiving, yes.
Columbus Day.
Finally, a masterpiece.
Well, we are watching Thanksgiving this year. Spoiler.
There we go.
We're also watching Halloween. That's the joke. If you didn't catch that, we are watching Halloween later this year. But it's not what we're watching next. Because next, it's time. We've taken a slight time off from a big franchise. It is time to jump in to a big franchise. So it is time. Next week, we're starting the classic Texas Chainsaw Massacre series. We are going to be watching the 1974 classic, the movie that kind of doesn't get enough credit when it comes to the fact that it is the reason, in a lot of ways, slasher films exist.
For the season.
It and Black Christmas both deserve tons of credit for creating the slasher genre as we know it, basically. And yeah, so we're watching the first one next week, and it's going to be a fun time. But now it's time for the regular outro. If you like this podcast and you watch it on YouTube, but you don't want to see our faces, we have an audio podcast on all the audio podcast apps that matter, which is Google, Apple, and Spotify. If you're a big Stitcher fan, I'm sorry. I don't understand how their process works. Okay? I'm sorry. But yeah, so we're on those 3 podcast apps. And if you like us, if you're an audio listener and you like us, like, hey, I don't know, leave a 5-star review to help us in those algorithmically based systems. And maybe also, like, tell a friend, because we have a very small podcast, and growing an audience has to kind of be done on word of mouth a lot at the beginning. Both of those could be great things you could do to help us out. Hey, you want to help us out specifically financially? Patreon.com/horrorboys. You can go right there and you can give us money directly. There's different rewards you could get. That's cool. You want to listen to this podcast as a video podcast with no ads? Whoa, it's right there. You want to listen to this podcast early? It's right there. You want a bunch of, other videos that we don't even currently produce? You want me and Chris to have to start producing those so you, the one viewer who paid for it, can watch it? We'll do that for you. Just go give us money, please.
All these things and more.
Yeah.
Could be you.
This is Horror Boys. I've been Austin. That's Chris and Isaiah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.